Hello and welcome to another Divinity Original Sin video. This is a beginner friendly guide to building a wizard from character creation screen and just a general consensus of how to build and what to look for during the game. So we're going to be covering the race, the presets, the gear, the schools, the attributes, and which talents at the beginning of the game that you should take from the character creation screen. So, which are the best races from the origin characters to play a wizard inside of a Pyro focused party? Now, I think the Red Prince has some sort of merit here. He does have Dragon's Blaze, which scales with Pyro, so he is a potential option, though personally you want to be playing your mages on high ground, so how often you're gonna find yourself in this position, I'm not so sure. Sibyl makes for a good mage, just simply because of the flesh sacrifice, which increases damage by 10%. So I kind of like her as a wizard. Also, there is a spell called Contamination, which can work quite nicely with blood. So that's also a consideration for her. Ethan Bemez and Losa both have the Ingenious talent, critical chance, and extra critical multiplier. Beast, I mean, somewhat of a mention is that he does have Petrifying Touch, which is a geo skill, but then, like for the Red Prince, you want to be sitting on high ground for the most time, and this is a touch spell, so it's not really going to have too much value. But for me personally, I think Thane makes a really good Pyro Geomage. He makes a pretty good anything, let's be honest. But the reason why I like him as a Pyro Geomage is Ingenious, critical chance and critical multiplier, his amazing special Time Warp, which is game breaking, play dead to drop aggro. But the really good thing I do like about him is that he likes poison surfaces, so it's very easy to set up elemental affinity right from the get-go. The build preset here determines a couple of things inside of game. As you can see, we got two floating wands. This basically means that these two wands will be found inside of the chest on the Merryweather. Also, the build preset will determine when you're recruiting your characters the set spells that they would come with. So if you were to recruit a wizard, they would come with these 3 spells. So just bear that in mind when it comes to recruiting your new party members. In terms of attributes, strength and finesse for the most part you will be completely ignoring. Intelligence will increase the damage of your spells and your intelligence based weapons, so like things like wands or staffs. So this will be your primary dump stats. Constitution is something that you should really ignore. Memory, being a mage, you're probably going to need quite a few points into this to accommodate as many spells, because you are a little bit exhausted for options, especially early game. So memory is understandable here, but just bear in mind that you want to keep your memory at a minimum to be able to increase your damage. Wits is your secondary stat, so you will want to be maximizing your intelligence first, followed up by your wits to increase your critical chance. In terms of your school skills, I'd highly recommend starting with Pyrokinetic and Geomancer, and it's already set up. Civil abilities, do what you wish. This is something that I'm not really going to be looking too much into, but you can decide for yourself which civil abilities that you want. In terms of the game itself, now to try to keep this as simple as possible, the question is where do I put my points? What's going to yield me the most damage? Now, the answer here is, if you're a Pyro mage, you should be putting points into Pyro first. If you're a Geo mage, you should be putting points into Geo first. That's going to increase your damage the most. But because we are a dual mage class, so we are focusing on Pyro and Geomancer. This is just how I personally like to build it, and I would recommend. I would meet the requirements for all the other skills that I want, and that includes Pyrokinetic and Geo. So at the beginning of the game, we only need 1 point to meet all the requirements for the skills that we want. Then I'd be looking at maximizing my Huntsman first. Huntsman increases all damage whilst you're on high ground. But the good thing about it is that by putting 1 point into Huntsman, you're increasing the damage of Pyrokinetic and Geomancer. If you were to do them individually, you would only be increasing the damage of that school. So if in my case I want to be a balance, I want there to be a balance between Pyro and Geo, I'm going to go Huntsman. If you want to primarily be a Pyro mage, put points into Pyro, and so on and so forth. So in my example of building, I would probably be looking at Huntsman as the first dump stat, and then depending at where you're at in the game and how much critical chance etc that you have, you could consider either, again, if you want to focus on Pyro more, go Pyro, same with Geo. But just say if you want to focus on a complete split between the two, I personally would look at going Huntsman first, and then maybe something like Two-Handed / Scoundrel. In terms of the base skills, I would recommend to begin the game with Fossil Strike, Searing Daggers, and Poison Dart. This gives you 3 different elements to attack with. It allows you the most flexibility. And in terms of talents, I would always recommend the Glass Cannon, but I would recommend that if you got a bit more experience first. But Elemental Affinity from the beginning is not a bad thing to take. You got multiple spells to use, and you can create a few additional spells such as Throw Dust and Throw Explosive Traps from level 2 pretty much once you get to Fort Joy. So that concludes the video. Hope that you enjoyed it. Hope this was helpful in some way for you. So thank you, and see you in the next one.